Before we get into the video, take a look at these t-shirts. For the gentlemen, there's Papa Squatch. For the ladies, there's Mama Squatch. And for the kids, there's Sasquatch in training. For a limited time, these shirts will be available only on mysteriesofcanada.com for $29 Canadian, or about $21 US. To get a closer look at this rare and elusive apparel, and support this channel in the process, please check out the link in the description. For the next 20 years following the monkey sighting near Sewell, Manitoba, every Canadian newspaper article on the subject of Wildmen was a description of a reclusive human being who, by choice, or as the result of mental illness, exchanged the comforts of society for the freedom of the forest. In the summer of 1887, a naked man was seen bathing in Ontario's Credit River, in what is now the Forks of the Credit Provincial Park. That fall, a wild man was seen lurking in a swamp near the village of Picton, Ontario, on the Prince Edward Peninsula which furrows the northern shore of Lake Ontario. Shortly thereafter, two school teachers attending a convention in Brandon, Manitoba, while out on a midnight stroll, were chased by a long-haired man wearing nothing but a breechcloth, who barked at them and foamed at the mouth as he loped after them with impossible swiftness. Before he could close in on his pedagogical prey, the wild man was chased off by one of the teacher's dogs. In June 1888, brief mention was made of a half-clad man who haunted the outskirts of Stonewall, Manitoba, a mining town about 20 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg. That August, a powerfully built 6-foot-tall wild man with long red hair and pink eyes that glowed like burning coals was seen chasing cattle near the village of Glencoe, between Lakes Erie and Huron. An article in the Brantford Daily Expositor reported that he had long hairy arms with claws and immense teeth and jaws, resembling a gorilla more than a human being, and declared that he barked like a dog. A remarkable article appeared in the April 26, 1890 issue of the Winnipeg Tribune, written by an author who signed his piece EWL. This short story, which has the polished prose of a fictional piece, but was nonetheless presented as a real news story, describes the author's encounter with a half-crazed Swiss on the lonely wooded shores of Lake Wabigoon in Ontario, about 130 kilometers east of Kenora. After treating the famished vagabond to tea and raw rabbit, the author was rewarded with an incredible tale. The Swiss claimed that, 40 years earlier, a wealthy German college friend had treated him to a luxurious tour of Europe, which culminated in a trek through the Mer de Glace ice fields in the French Alps, on the northern slopes of Mont Blanc. There, the German pushed the Swiss into a crevasse, after telling him that he intended to make him the subject of a science experiment, having calculated that his frozen corpse would emerge from the ice near a certain chateau in 40 years' time. The Swiss claimed that he survived the fall, and spent the next 4 decades subsisting on the creatures that tumbled into his icy prison, including an unfortunate mountain guide, who perished in his descent. By the time the crevasse finally opened, incidentally at the time and place predicted by the German glaciologist, the luckless Swiss had lost his mind. In May 1890, much was made of an antisocial hermit named William Walter Zimmerman, who lived in a ramshackle cottage 6 miles southeast of Grimsby, Ontario, between St. Catharines and Hamilton. For years, Zimmerman had gone about naked and hopped from place to place like a frog at night, earning himself the reputation of a local boogeyman. Other 1890s wildmen were reportedly spotted outside the Parkland settlement of Rossburn, Manitoba, and in the settlement of Beulah, Manitoba, about 50 kilometers to the southwest. Sightings of feral human beings continued to be reported throughout the 1890s. In January 1891, a chicken-stealing, mentally handicapped French-Canadian was captured in the township of Sunnydale, Ontario, between Lake Simcoe and Georgian Bay. An article declared he was one of God's creatures, but sunk to such a depth of degradation that there was only one thing to mark his superiority to the brute creation: speech. Intelligible speech. Brief mention was made of a hermit who haunted the banks of Ontario's Cataraqui River in February 1893, of a wild man who prowled the shores of Netley Lake, Manitoba, off the southern tip of Lake Winnipeg in March of that same year, of a mentally disabled man known as Blackjack, who terrorized the residents of Oliphant on Lake Huron's Bruce Peninsula that July, and of a vagrant named John Brazel, who lived in a hollow log north of the village of Comaqua, just west of London, Ontario, whom a November 1893 article described as hopelessly insane. Other supposedly human wildmen were reported in various parts of Ontario, including the town of Aylmer, south of London, the village of Cornwall on the St. Lawrence River, Stephen Township, northwest of London, the forest which fringes the northern outskirts of London, the town of Wyerton, not far from Oliphant, in a cave north of Kingston, in a wood west of Kitchener, in the brush near Holliford, near Frontenac Provincial Park, and near the village of Woodsley, south of Lake St. Clair. The only 1890s wildman to make his home outside the so-called Heartland province was a hermit, whom the Indians said lived a vegetarian lifestyle on the banks of Quebec's Dulivre River. Most of these wildmen were supposed to be either convicts on the run or escapees from asylums. It is interesting to note, in light of this series' previous segment, that many of these wildman sightings were made by berry pickers. In 1901, wildman reports began to trickle out of the province of British Columbia, which borders the Pacific Ocean. In November of that year, an article in the Vancouver Daily Province described a hunting party's run-in with a wildman on Vancouver Island's Trent River, just south of present-day Courtenay, BC. While making their way through the bush, the article said of the hunters, they came across a small clearing with a cabin where, although their men knew the district well, they had no idea that there was anything in the shape of a habitation. A weird figure came out of the shack, a man garbed in ragged clothes and skins, and with long and tangled hair and beard, who yelled at them in gibberish, which they could not understand. The threatening appearance and actions of the man, combined with the loneliness of the spot, and the altogether unexpected nature of the encounter, were so uncanny and fearsome that the hunters retreated hurriedly. The article explained that the wildman was supposed to be one Jacob Liedl, a former resident of Nanaimo, on the western side of the island, whose apparent insanity was a result of years of isolation in the bush. 2 years later, a tall, muscular man, wearing a ragged shirt and trousers, emerged from the woods near Surrey on the Fraser Delta and entered the home of one James Carruthers, who was away working at the time. Terrified, James's wife and children hid in a bedroom, while the wildman, who was described as having a red beard and fiery eyes, helped himself to coats, underwear, fresh baked bread, and a beef roast before stalking back into the forest. Another wild-looking figure, supposed to be the same man, was later seen by local farmers and school children, bounding across roads and flitting through the forest. A Vancouver newspaper speculated that the wildman might be Edward Hyder, who had disappeared after his cabin near Agassiz, incidentally in the heart of what is now recognized as Sasquatch country, burned down in the autumn of 1902. Several weeks after the destruction of his home, Hyder is said to have paid a visit to a local bachelor named Mr. Leave, and insisted that his impromptu host cook a rotten salmon he had picked up during his wanderings. After eating this rancid repast with apparent relish, the strange man bedded down for the night and departed early the next morning. In a strange parallel with the saga of Martin, the German CPR survey employee, whose story we explored in a previous segment of this series, Hyder declared that he would make for the Nicola Valley to the east, in British Columbia's interior plateau. The next flurry of wildman reports to hit Canadian papers was relatively unremarkable, including the tale of a masked man who frightened children near Winnipeg, Manitoba's Fort Rouge district, a cursory reference to a wildman supposed to haunt the forest near Mallorytown, Ontario, on the northern shores of the St. Lawrence, whispers of a gun-wielding madman near the prairie settlement of Braziler, Saskatchewan, and the story of a naked hermit who prowled the fields of Rosser, Manitoba, northwest of Winnipeg. It wasn't until the summer of 1904 that reports of what we know today as the Sasquatch of the Pacific Northwest began to appear in Canadian papers, beginning with the tale of a startling encounter on Vancouver Island, British Columbia, which we will explore in the next segment of this series.